This episode of the Topcast is proudly supported by the ABRSM. You're listening to the Topcast, the original podcast for growth-minded instrumental music and voice teachers since 2015, with your host, Tim Topham. Our mission at Top Music is to empower instrumental music and voice teachers to find and nurture their innate creativity so that they can teach lessons that are innovative, integrated, and inspiring, and that will have a positive, lifelong impact on their students. Join us each week as we interview teachers and creators from around the world and unpack fun and exciting ideas to maximise your teaching and studio business success. Welcome back, teachers. It's great to be spending some more time with you today. You are listening to the Topcast with me, Tim Topham, your host. And thank you very much for tuning in. It's wonderful to have you with us, whether you're listening for the first time or you are a long-time subscriber and listener. Thank you so much. Make sure you hit the subscribe on whichever podcast app you are listening to this on. And remember, you can find full information on our show notes. For today's episode, that's at topmusic.co/episode 392. Now, for those of you in the United States, exams aren't necessarily such a big thing. I know the MTAC, I think it is, does have an exam program, but a lot of the United States doesn't. However, being an old English UK colony, Australia, UK, of course, Canada and New Zealand and some other countries, all do tend to have an exam culture, which I've talked about a number of times on previous episodes, both the good and the bad aspects of that. Whether annually or irregularly, there are now actually many choices of exam boards that teachers can enrol students in, and many of whom I've actually interviewed on the show already. But today I am pleased to be interviewing pianist, examiner and consultant Samantha Carrasco all about the new ABRSM. That's the Associated Board of the Royal Schools of Music Syllabus, which is launching next year, and discussing some of the main changes and updates. As you'll hear during the episode, the ABRSM is one of the longest running, if not the longest running, of the exam boards. And with a little bit of research, and we talk about this in the show, it was founded in 1889. Now, music history buffs. Which composers were around and composing in 1889? Do you know? Pause it and have a think if you want. The answer is Satie, Debussy, Elgar, Dvorak, and their contemporaries. They were actually composing music when the ABRSM actually launched. So keep that in mind particularly when we discuss a little bit later the addition of popular music in the new syllabus and what would have actually been considered popular, in inverted commas, music back in 1889. So in today's episode, you'll find out how the ABRSM exams work, what's required, what's changed, how you can enrol students if you're new to it, and towards the end of the show, you'll get to hear Sam play some of the pieces. And by chance, she even finishes with one of my favourites from the whole collection, which was a pretty cool coincidence. Now, full disclosure, you will have heard that the ABRSM have been our sponsor for the podcast this month, and they did gift me their books. But as you'll hear in today's episode, I'm keen to provide as unbiased a view of the new syllabus as possible. And so we do discuss some of the concerns raised by others in reviews online that I found during today's conversation. Today's guest, Samantha Carrasco, explores a diverse and flexible repertoire as a recitalist, concerto soloist, chamber musician and accompanist. Alongside her performing career, Sam continues to pursue her commitment to education. She's an examiner, trainer, reviewer and presenter for the ABRSM, working nationally and internationally in classical music, diplomas and jazz. She presents teaching and examining seminars on behalf of the ABRSM in China, the USA, and the UK, and presented a number of practice and pedagogical videos over the lockdown period. Samantha is also head of keyboard at Peter Symonds College in Winchester and helps to run the Hampshire Specialist Music course. Samantha participates in BSO Live education projects and has made various performance presentation podcasts and videos. She also coaches chamber ensembles and adjudicates music competitions, as well as hosting masterclasses for pianists, accompanists, and ensemble groups. Welcome to the show, Samantha. It's so great to meet you.
Really lovely to be here. Thanks ever so much, Tim. Thanks for inviting us.
And particularly at 10 p.m. your time. Luckily, it's 9 a.m. for me, but pretty reasonable. But you said you're a bit of a night owl, a bit of a musician, so that's all right.
Yeah, musician. It comes with the territory of lots of travelling and lots of concerts and performing and, early mornings, late nights.
So on that topic, tell us, what do you do at the ABRSM?
So at ABRSM, I'm an examiner, a trainer and a reviewer and also a presenter. Done lots of international tours, international presenting, lots of workshops. I do a little bit of advisory role in the syllabus So I have lots of different elements that I do for ABRSM.
Got it, all-rounder, and obviously involved in this new syllabus.
Yeah, no, I mean, particularly in the sort of CPD element of it for teachers, and what we call inset days and presentations to show all the new piano teachers what it's all about, and all the various ideas. Yeah,
I remember doing the same here in Australia when I helped edit one of the Australian AMEB series, and I remember doing a lot of travel for that. But it was great fun sharing what you'd put together with all the teachers and how you can go about teaching things. So I know it all too well. And just you mentioned CPD before, just if anyone's listening, continuing professional development.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely that. Yeah.
And do you teach music yourself as well?
I do. I'm head of keyboard at Peter Symonds College in Winchester. And I teach on the Hampshire Specialist Music course. We do wide-ranging amount of concerts, and I perform regularly doing lunchtime concerts for them, and also run a piano club. So all of my pianists all come together every week, a little bit like the instrumentalists go to orchestra. The pianists come to piano club, and very much the idea is that they're coming to perform little bits. So I get them, playing a chord, playing a scale, and just building it up and getting some priceless performance experience.
So important for pianists to play in groups. I remember when I was invited in my school as the pianist to join the percussion in the orchestra and sing in the choir, and I did all of it, and it was so valuable, both for my own musicianship, but just for fun.
Yeah, and we spend so much of our time practicing and in a very solitary existence that actually working with others and getting, feeling comfortable playing in front of other people. We instrumentalists do really take it for granted, actually, and pianists don't have that opportunity. So that's very much part of my thing. I also actually play orchestral piano for the Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra as well. So I do a real mixture of roles.
A real portfolio career, this one, Sam.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Tell us about the ABRSM and how it works. My understanding is you put out a collection of books, one for each grade, every 2 years. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So every 2 years, a new piano syllabus comes up, and they've introduced a system more recently where there's an overlap of a whole year. So in 2025, when the new syllabus comes into play, you're in the sort of glory year where you've got the option of 2 different syllabuses, not to be mixed and matched, obviously, but but it gives teachers great flexibility. If you've got a pupil that's needing a little bit more time, the time pressure is off, where it has, in the past it may have been just 2 years and quite strict on that cutoff point. But this overlap means that it's much more flexible in the offer that it gives, and there's a great crossover period from the old syllabus to the new syllabus.
And so, yeah, effectively, you can use the books for 3 years, even though they're specified for 2. That's what we're saying.
Pretty much, yeah. And
do the music in each of them, do they completely change, or are there some pieces like a Berg, the Bergmullers we all teach? Are they in it all the time, kind of thing?
Well, they have each syllabus has new pieces every 2 years. So with the actual book itself that comes out is absolutely all of the pieces in there are new pieces. But what else? The other thing that the board offers is that the alternative pieces, which there's a list within the new piano syllabus, every single grade, every single book has got an alternative list of pieces. And on that particular list, there are crossovers there are 10 pieces that are from the previous syllabus as well, which are on the alternative list. So there's great scope for extra pieces from different syllabuses as well.
Great. And so at each grade, and because all the exam boards do these things slightly differently, and I know that different grade levels will do this differently, but on the whole, what is required for an ABRSM exam? What do the students need to do? How many books will they need to buy, etc.? Absolutely.
So technically, you would only need to buy one book, which is for each grade. There's 9 pieces in the book, and it's made up of 3 lists: List A, List B, and List C. you pick one piece out of the 3 from each list to play. So you've got a piece for A, B, and C. And in the book itself as well, there's a list of scale requirements as well. So you follow the scales, the pieces, then there's sight reading, which the examiner would do in the exam, and oral training, oral tests, which the examiner would do in the exam as well. So that's what ABRSM offers for a live exam, if you like, but a performance grade, which is a separate type of exam, where you can record just 4 pieces. So again, you're recording the 3 pieces from list A, B, and C, one from each of those lists, and then your 4th piece is whichever you would like it to be. That's from your own choice.
Yeah, okay.
Any list, any list, could be it. Then that is where you have the flexibility of using a previous syllabus if you want to do within the same grade.
Got it. Okay. So you've got the more traditional exam, which has the sight reading and oral tests, or you can do the performance only. And I think, am I right in thinking you can submit videos still?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. So the performance grade is definitely still a video, and that's the one with the 4 pieces. And the one which is the live exam, that's the one with the scales and the pieces and the sight reading and the oral tests. So that comes as a separate offer. But in terms of actual books that you need, you would just need the one book, which is the pieces, but you have got scope to explore the alternative pieces. And I think some piano teachers build up a portfolio of books. There are some common themes with the actual books and the repertoire that's used with the alternative pieces. But there is a separate publication for scales. If if you wanted to make sure that your pupil is using the correct fingering or needs to have a visual learning rather than perhaps, just learning scales from memory. And teachers then would have their own oral test copy books and sight reading books. But there's plenty of opportunity to get more repertoire out there with various other sight reading books and sight reading publications if you wanted to get a little bit better at those types of elements of the test.
And those technical workbooks, sight reading books, they don't change every 2 years like the main syllabus books, so you can just keep on using those.
Yeah, the pieces are just refreshed so that piano teachers are excited to see different repertoire. It helps the piano teachers expand their own learning aids and repertoire, and it just keeps everything quite fresh and current, really, changing with the times.
I wanted to talk about that, Sam, because that's clearly been a big change, and there's been a number of reviewers who have been talking about this being quite a different and diverse collection. So what was the big goal of the 2025 series?
So the main goal of it in the 2025 series was really to just diversify and really look into different types of composers, different genres, and continue along the path that ABRSM has been doing in the last couple of piano syllabuses, and really essentially extending, what you might call in sort of serious terms, the musical canon, if you like, rather than going straight down the sort of traditional routes of preludes and fugues and Beethoven sonatas. It's really diversifying in common with what's going on in the actual music industry itself.
And in fact, this has caused a little bit of controversy. I did a little bit of digging, and we had a review by David Barton who praised this as, he quote, probably the most diverse ABRSM piano syllabus ever, end quote, which I thought was fantastic. But there are some pop arrangements, and I think maybe that hasn't happened before. I personally, I have loved teaching and helping students with pop music and helping teachers with it as well. But why do you think this has caused a bit of a stir?
It's interesting, really, because I think on the one hand, I think potentially there's a slight nervousness with teachers because it might be music that perhaps they're less familiar with. But ironically, the pupils much more have their sort of fingers on the pulse with what's changing, and essentially, we're trying to evolve with the musical landscape around us, rather than just sticking with traditional methods and traditional repertoire. And so much of it has changed, as we know, in the last, since COVID. And, many musicians are really, really drawing inspiration from a wide range of genres rather than just a narrow range of it. And certainly the musicians coming through the industry nowadays have very much got their feet in two camps, the classical and contemporary, with many people having classical training, which might go into jazz or pop training. And so it's reflecting that really, and making sure that we're being sympathetic with what's going on around us, and really making sure that also that you're inspiring people to practice, and as we all know, as piano teachers, and trying to get that balance between getting the sort of technical elements of things in place, along with inspiring them to practice and really helping them to enjoy learning different types of repertoire. In some respects, I'm quite interested to see why it's caused cry to stir, because the actual repertoire has been out there, and the Pop Performer publication came out in 2022. And I guess this is the first time that the publications have been used a little bit more in a direct way, I guess, within the syllabus, rather than as just a separate publication that you might use in your own time. So
yeah, I mean, repertoire is critical. I mean, anytime I think about when I want to go and play my instrument, it's because I want to play the piece that I'm trying to learn, and I'm invested and interested in it. So of course we have to. And one of the pillars of top music is a student-centered approach. We have to give them some autonomy, some say, this is our students, in what they're doing and where it's taking them. I think that agency is very important, and I think long gone are the days for most students of a teacher simply directing, this is what we're going to do, and this is the piece you're going to learn, and you better enjoy it. If not, you can quit, find another teacher, I don't care. I mean, I don't think that's really happening anymore. And so I give credit to you guys for just expanding and broadening the repertoire choices.
Yeah, I mean, I secretly got a sort of hope that the Pop Performer will go. I'm pretty sure there'll be another volume at some point, which will go up from grades 6 to 8, because the level at which I teach from 16 to 18 years old, and when you're actually getting students to perform for their A-level exam in the UK, that they really like those pop pieces and the contemporary pieces, and to have that repertoire expanded, and it's absolutely paramount to really reflecting what's going on. I was thinking about it earlier in terms of the musical scene, and perhaps why are we looking into sort of pop arrangements and things like that, and if you actually look at the quantity of music that is being created on a daily basis, and the genre of that creation, that therein lies the point, doesn't it? Because the actual quantity of music is, so much of that is in the sort of contemporary fields, and actually trying to really reflect that within a syllabus, whilst still maintaining the traditional roots, and essentially giving a historical overview of what the music industry is. It's quite exciting, really, to have that going right from the beginning all the way through to some very contemporary pieces, all within one piano syllabus.
One of the challenges with pop arrangements, of course, is that they necessarily are often simplified in some ways. And I know that Andrew Eales of Piano DAO, his blog, he expressed some concern about whether candidates might be penalised for playing the pop songs with the original rhythms that they feel, even if it's not strictly according to the simplified arrangements. And I saw Gareth Brooke, who was on the show actually just recently. He said, quote, "To put it more provocatively, if an exam candidate corrects an arrangement that is wrong or not, 100% precise, will they be rewarded or penalised?" And I thought this was a really interesting question to pose to you, because I remember when the Australian Guild of Music in Australia released their books at the start of this year. They had some pop arrangements and they were demonstrated according to the written rhythm. But we had that same question from the audience. If the student can actually feel all the syncopations and play them, is that a good thing or a bad thing? So what would you say to that?
I mean, one of the things which I found slightly interesting with that idea is that whether if the exam candidate corrects an arrangement that is wrong. I mean, I wouldn't first of all go with it feels a little bit black and white with an arrangement either being right or wrong. I mean, even if you think back to arrangements of piano duets, of whole symphonies, which, Beethoven symphonies, Schubert symphonies, we wouldn't necessarily describe them as being wrong. It's just we're just hearing it in a slightly different way in terms of arrangement. But in terms of the rewarding or penalizing, I think it's an interesting question, because essentially what everyone is trying to say, what's the right way to play it? What's the, is there an ABRSM way to play a piece of music? And the answer is no. It's very much to do with the actual assessment of the music rather than whether it's right or wrong, black and white. And what we find is that the way that we're trained as examiners is we're always trained to use the criteria. We listen to the piece and we're assessing what we hear. And then we use the criteria in such a way that we're like, okay, let's think about this in terms of pitch, time, tone, shape, and performance. And that's the 5 elements of the criteria. And it's really interesting because in terms of an actual arrangement, I know this is the nitty gritty that we're getting into, but the actual diversification, if you like, of going from Bach to even Ravel, if you go with the different approaches, can you say, stylistically, can you assess it with the same criteria when something is so different in that way? But I think absolutely that you can assess with the same criteria that is set in stone. And I just wanted to read out one of the elements in relation to the question in terms of if an arrangement is wrong, will you be rewarded or penalized? And when it comes to arrangements, the actual arrangement that's in the book is the one that the board, which ABRSM is endorsing, and this is the particular arrangement that you're looking forward to do. But there is obviously, as we know with any type of Bach, when in terms of ornamentation with Bach or rubato in romantic music, there is a degree of flexibility when it comes to understanding rhythm. And one of the points which I found really interesting reading the criteria again this afternoon, in relation to time, the elements that the examiner might be listening for at a distinction level would be fluent with flexibility where appropriate, which incorporates everything to do with an arrangement. And in terms of shape, it says expressive, idiomatic musical shaping and detail. And with performance, it says vivid communication of character and style. So essentially, there is scope to put your own stamp on it in terms of either having slightly, a slight variation in rhythmic freedom, rhythmic flexibility, like we would establish in all different types of music. If that answers your question and doesn't just sort of go round and round about.
Yeah, no, I think it does. I mean, I'm picturing, a candidate performing in front of me as an examiner, and they're playing really rigidly, robotically. That's not going to rate as highly for me. And I'm not an ABRSM examiner, obviously, but I'm thinking, I want a musical result. Ultimately, we want these students to present a musical solution, right?
To understand it, take it for their own. The music is on the page. As the teacher, you're encouraging your student to be inspired, to have their own voice and their own ideas, whether that be through time or whether that be through dynamics or pedaling, and to have their own touch on it. So there isn't a right or a wrong way. It's not as quite as black and white as that. It's very much to do with how the candidate, how the performer is really showing their deep understanding of the piece of music. And, there might be a little bit of give in the time. There might be a little bit more of a sort of a different type of shape, or, and those, as musicians, we can hear all of those differences really quite quickly and quite easily. And I guess that's the point.
And we're actually going to hear some excerpts from some of the pieces shortly, which I'm very excited that you've put up your hand and said, yes, I'll give you some demonstrations. So we can actually potentially hear a few little bits of some of these pieces, which is really exciting. But I did find another quote. I can't remember if it was Andrew or David on one of the written reviews, which said, quote, ABRSM certainly have some ingenious arrangers on hand, but while these songs are great for light relief between grades, there are good reasons to doubt that they are suitable for globally lauded music assessment. Now, personally, I completely disagree with that one. And I feel for the ABRSM in some ways that you can't win. We need to keep innovating. You need to change because, particularly in my experience, fewer and fewer teenagers have the time and desire to practice for hours a day that they would need on pieces that they don't necessarily really relate to get really good marks. Well, in my experience, this is anecdotally, it is diminishing over time. And so for someone like me who has long advocated for helping teachers explore pop music with students, albeit from a non-notation approach, that's how I do it, I really applaud an exam syllabus that can make these pieces more accessible for students, as I really wanted to do when I put together the AMEB syllabus here. So I just wanted to check in with you. Were these changes kind of made as a result of direct feedback from teachers going, we want more pop, or was it more just about having an ear to the ground and as you said a little bit earlier, just sort of getting a sense of what music is being made out there, and that's really helped sort of outline what direction you've decided to go?
I guess that the main thing with ABRSM is made up of some absolutely amazing musicians. Fundamentally, they have a bank of fabulous musicians, composers, performers in all the different genres and types of music. And the examiner team are one of the most sort of diverse, clever, amazing set of people who are constantly doing different things and have different takes on the music industry. And there's very much an open dialogue between all elements of the examiners, of the staff at ABRSM, teachers. There's teacher forums, there's teacher hubs, there's all sorts of piano forums like you've mentioned in terms of reviews and things. And ABRSM is very sympathetic to, really what people are thinking and where it's going, and actually, I guess in some respects, not afraid to go with that, or go with it, but at the same time, keeping your feet absolutely on the ground and not throwing the baby out with the bathwater or anything drastic, and saying, we have a history of music, we have an established amount of music and forms and sonatas and all of these wonderful things, but essentially with the actual industry itself has changed, and it's going with that. And in every piece that goes into the syllabus really goes under absolutely rigorous evaluation to make sure that it's the right piece for the assessment, it works well for the instrument, and that it really functions by itself. So the idea really is it's responding to this evolving musical landscape and really showing a mirror of the reflection of the music industry itself. I would like to think, it's quite a statement to say that the sort of, I guess, the pop side of things is perhaps not suitable for musical assessment. To requote, every musical piece within the syllabus has value. The musical value stays the same, and the actual techniques that mean that you have to try and project a melody, for example, in a pop piece, and different nuances with tone and different nuances with pedaling that you might get in an arrangement of a piece is no different to a Schumann piece or a Chopin nocturne or something that comes, 100, 200 years earlier. So it's the same techniques, but we're just expanding things and broadening the repertoire.
The Associated Board and the Royal Schools of Music has released its new piano syllabuses for 2025 and 2026. For practical and performance grades from initial grade through to grade 8, students will love the wide choice of repertoire. It includes familiar favourites, core classics and new commissions, as well as chart-topping pieces from pop, stage and screen. With professional audio recordings available to stream from music platforms such as Apple Music, Amazon and Spotify, it's now easier than ever to explore and choose exam pieces. Books for all grades, each featuring 9 selected pieces, are now available from all good music retailers, and students can use the new syllabus in exams from the 1st of January 2025. Explore the inspirational new repertoire and find out more at abrsm.org.uk/piano. I mean, pop music in its own way has its own challenges that are harder than some classical music, so I can definitely see both sides.
It's definitely not to be sniffed at. It's right when it's right, and it can sound really not that good when it's when it's not all there, and they're getting all of those things in. But the actual assessment element of it stands throughout the different styles, and there is obviously sort of a slight sort of anxiety over whether examiners can have use the same criteria to assess pop music. But the irony is we've been doing this all the way through through the grades and through all the different instruments and syllabuses in different areas. Say, for example, Singing for Musical Theatre, it includes lots of Disney arrangements, lots of musical arrangements. That's been going since 2018, and from grades 1 to 3, and then from 2022, it's been doing from grades 1 to 8. So the piano syllabus, I guess, is the next one on the list to just have a slight shake-up and include a more contemporary musical canon.
Well, look, I think it's time to have a listen to some of these pieces. So are you happy to give us a little taste of some pieces from some grades?
The first one I'd like to have a look at is in the initial. And I guess, to reiterate the idea of tradition and innovation at the same time, there's this fabulous piece, even in initial grade, where you're really building on skills in tone production, the melody in G, B1. So it's a lovely little ditty.
Yeah, definitely work in balancing. Lots of balance required.
Lots of balance required, and lots of changes in dynamics and just very, very subtle change. In terms of going up and down within the phrase, maintaining the legato, all in a 5-finger hand position. Tick all of those things.
Really accessible. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, really accessible for an initial grade. To really get the character of pieces going already by grade 1. I've got my cyberspace detective here, so it's really thinking about articulation and interpretation. And there's the sort of fabulous nod to the James Bond chord at the end. One of the great things about the piano syllabus, as you probably know, is that there's some fabulous footnotes at the bottom, which include, quite often notes by the composer themselves, or just a little bit of a way into understanding. There's quite a sort of, quite a story associated with the cyberspace detective. But here it is. Absolutely.
I call it a raised eyebrow chord. Yeah, that's groovy, isn't it? Yeah, I like it. And I like that the left hand isn't just playing fifths all the way through. It's actually got some interest and some challenges of its own.
Yeah, absolutely. And that sort of combination of staccato and legato and, really getting in there with the dynamics. It's, there's a lot going on with there.
That's by Amit Anand, who was born 89, so quite a young composer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, what else have we got?
One. Okay, so Pete Latanka's Way Out West. Oh, absolutely fantastic. Sort of rolling, lazy left hand with this one.
So this is grade 2 now.
Yeah, so grade 2. Yeah, C2, Way Out West.
That's groovy. Howdy, partner. I can imagine the teachers working with students and having a student listen to it and then asking them what's actually happening in that middle section's labeled dreamily as the speed. And I'm thinking, what's the cowboy doing or cowgirl doing here? You could have a really fun discussion with your students about that.
Yeah, it's just really, really sort of speaking to the imagination, this one. And great to have Pete's, I think it's one of the first pieces that he's got in the syllabuses before. So really great to, show some different composers, really endorsing this diversity of composers and genres. So that's a good one. I like that one.
So Sam, we probably got time for maybe 3 more. Do you want to just pick, we could just keep going up the grades, or if you want to jump to a later one, that's fine too.
Yeah. I definitely want to play the next one because I think this is just, I guess this probably epitomizes quite a lot of what we've been talking about in terms of, should we do arrangements? Are they worthwhile? Are they, do they have great value? Which absolutely they do. I want to play No Time to Die, actually, which is great.
What grade is that?
Grade 3, and it's in the pop performer book. And it's a great arrangement, actually. There's lots going on, lots of control needed, lots of changing dynamics, lots of tone, pedal control, and moving around the keyboard. So it really holds up for me. So see what you think.
So Sam, just before you play, this piece is not in this. So
it's
this
not
is
in that book. Yeah. So it's in the pop performer book, this one. And it's on so this is one of the pieces that's on the alternative list. So
okay. So I'll have a list that will be listed somewhere in this book, will it? But the music isn't. Oh, okay. So other pieces for grade 3 at the back.
Other pieces for grade 3 at the back. Yep, absolutely that. Yep. Okay. So you can pick any one of those extra pieces which are outside of the book. If you wanted to just have one publication, you would buy, the grade 3 book, but there's the great list of alternative pieces, which sometimes if you're putting together like a performance grade and you want to have an extra piece as your 4th piece, it provides that variety. But also the alternative pieces are often then left in the alternative list for the next syllabus. So they sort of last a little longer as well. So, yeah. Okay. So No Time to Die.
that chord again, or a similar one. I love it. That was really nice. Thanks for sharing that one. That's a great arrangement.
It's a great arrangement, and so when teachers are worried about arrangements and in terms of it being right or wrong, and I think,
or how accurate it is, I think is the question. Yeah,
possibly have a little faith that the actual arrangement itself is the composers have really put in quite a lot of the essence of all of the stuff that's in there, and actually we can do a lot with that without even feeling the need to change anything on the page or have too much sort of change to it, changing rhythms, things like that.
Yep. No, I really like that one. All right. What would you recommend?
Oh, I don't know. So, I mean, I tell you what's a good one, actually. Let's switch to grade 6. Okay. So the B3 and the last song. So Alex French, who is now the new artistic director for ABRSM.
Oh, right. Okay. Oh, look, when I go through a syllabus book, I give them ticks as to how much I like them. Can you see how many ticks this one got?
No, I can't quite see.
3 ticks.
How many have you got?
3 ticks. That's my max.
Oh, that's good.
I really like this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm glad you chose this one.
Yeah, it's a great one. Absolutely great one. And, there's a lot of stuff going on in this. There's key changes. There's, the absolute sort of driving towards the end. But I guess I'm sort of a bit of a sucker for the footnotes on this one, where he's talking about writing it for his daughter who does ballet, which echoes very much with my own daughter, and so I like that. I like that, and there's I don't know, the harmonies in this are really sort of just starting to go a little bit out there, and the hand positions are, it's you have to really think about it, which I really like about it. So,
and it's in E major as well, but I found it fit really well under the hands.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
That is so nice. I could tell you like it as well.
Yeah, it's a good one. There's a sort of, I don't know, I can't quite unhear the slight reference to Jurassic Park at the end.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, but that's just me being silly.
It's very film, like you can picture a film going on in your head. This is great film music, style music. Yeah, no, students would love that one. Yes, thank you for sharing that. That's fantastic. As much as I'd love to hear you play lots more, we should probably start wrapping things up.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Sam, for preparing those and sharing them with us. I think that's great. Just a little taster. But one of the other big changes you've made recently is the accessibility for the recordings. So if teachers are interested in hearing these without even buying the books, I think they can listen to the music. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So they're basically making all the audio recordings available on all the sort of major streaming services. They used to you used to be able to buy two different types of books, one with a CD and one without a CD. And obviously CDs are slowly falling into non-existent.
I think they have already.
No doubt in 20 years' time they'll be vintage or something and everyone will be wanting them again. But streaming is definitely where it's at. So many people are listening to music through streaming and, through devices. And this really opens up the library of recordings, the bank of recordings that ABRSM have to all the teachers and schools and the wider community. So rather than having to purchase it. But you can obviously still get MP3 downloads as a one-off purchase via Amazon and the iTunes store. But essentially you can hear all these pieces. You can hear the alternative pieces crucially as well, which is fantastic.
Oh, so not just the pieces in the book, but all of the alternative pieces, or some of them? Surely not all of them.
I'm not sure whether it's all of them, but there's definitely a splattering of them all in there as well. Yeah.
So if you've got a Spotify subscription already, which I would imagine most listeners would, then this is free, which is brilliant.
Which is absolutely fantastic. Yeah. So it's just, again, moving with the times, isn't it? That's where it's at. And I remember, a long time ago where, the piano syllabus might come out and then literally the second day there'd be recordings of it on YouTube, and you think, gosh, people have barely had chance to practice and really own the music. And so now you can hear some fantastic performances of it and really get inspired to put your own stamp on it.
And I was looking at the back of the books. So at the back, you've got the list of other pieces. So I'm just looking at the grade 3 book. You've got the printed works in the book, and then it's got the other pieces for grade 3, and there's 16 for each of the lists.
So that's a new thing for this syllabus. Yeah, it's a lot of choice. So if you're wanting to go for a more traditional route, you can absolutely find all the pieces, in the traditional side of music. But it's opening up the innovative works and the more modern, more contemporary works. I mean, traditionally the A list would have been the light and the faster and the sort of technical pieces, which is where it's at. The B list would have been more to do with the lyrical and expressive pieces, and then the C list is very much looking into sort of character, style.
It's where you get your jazz and your pop, and
where you might get your jazz and or your sort of contemporary stuff. But obviously, there's also options to do duets in the alternative list from initial to grade 3. So, which is again what we were talking earlier about, playing with other people and actually playing as an ensemble. It's a great way into it, and it's particularly for a candidate that's feeling a bit apprehensive to just have one piece with somebody else there. It's quite.
That's great that there's the duet option. Who plays the secondo in the exam?
Most of the time it's the teacher. The examiner doesn't play because they're still examining, so it has to be
the
prepared.
2 players have to be prepared. Got it.
A little bit like the accompanist coming in.
Yes, yeah, I've done many of those.
yeah.
And then on the back page, the inside back cover, we've got the scales and arpeggios are all listed. So unless you need the printed work, then that's all there for you. And then I've just noticed the recording credits. It's not one person. There's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different people have recorded.
Yep, and different people for different grades as well. So
and some of the composers, by the looks of things, too.
Yes, yep, some of them, yeah. That's always an even bigger bonus, isn't it? When the composers recorded it, because you really get an idea of what they're wanting to come through.
Well, look, Sam, we should probably wrap things up. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you. Is there anything that I've missed that you wanted to share before we let people know where they can get hold of all this stuff?
Yeah, I just perhaps wanted to reiterate about this fabulous new syllabus that we've got here, and looking to explore more modern composers and diverse collection of composer and genre. And I was musing to myself, actually thinking, gosh, maybe it's seen as it's a new thing, that we're adding these pop arrangements and things in our piano syllabus. And I double checked as to when ABRSM was founded, which was in 1889. I then checked when Brahms died, and he died in 1897. So if you do the maths on when ABRSM started,
it was playing pop at the time because it was Brahms, right?
It was Brahms, with his pop compositions, the contemporary Brahms, and it just sort of made me smile that ABRSM has been having to make these decisions right from the start, and nothing stays the same, and we do, as a species, as a musical species, evolve with it. And you're looking at a huge quantity of music, and actually to have these arrangements that people can get their hands on and really feel that they're sort of getting in touch with what's happening around them, I think it's really exciting. So I guess that's what I'd like you. It was my extra thing to add. The contemporary Brahms. Yeah,
I like that. Yeah. For teachers who have never taught ABRSM but might have a student that they feel this style of exam could resonate with, where should they go? Where do people find these books?
Find out more. Absolutely. So, I mean, the first starting point, particularly as a global organization, is the ABRSM website. And that includes all of the details about the exams, the pieces, the syllabuses, what ABRSM offers in terms of all the instruments, all the grades, going right from a prep test through to initial to grade 8, all the way through to diplomas. So there's plenty of information there. If some of your listeners are teachers as well, there's a fantastic teacher hub that you can sign up to and log in, with all sorts of extra films and lesson plans and ideas and sort of really picking out some of the pieces and pulling them apart. I've been doing a few videos for the teacher hub as well, some of the pieces that are in the piano syllabuses. So there's plenty to be found there. There's lots of friends to find your way in and ask questions about. Ask questions too.
That's great. And the examination of this particular collection starts January 1st, 2025? Exactly
that. Yeah. So, yeah, and like I said, there'll be an overlap of a year with the previous syllabus and this new one as well.
Great. And any teacher can enrol a student in the exam. You don't have to have done a course or anything like that, do you?
No, absolutely. I mean, in Australia, you would have to check for when the live exams were, in the various centres as to when the live exams were happening. But absolutely, if you wanted to just get involved and get recording straight away to do a performance grade, to do 4 pieces, and then that's just a straightforward upload and off you go.
Fantastic. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure spending time with you today. Thank you for playing as well, playing pieces for us. That was a joy to listen to.
I've never played with headphones on, so it's quite a bizarre thing to try and do at the same time.
You've done well, and I think it came through, even though Zoom doesn't particularly enjoy piano music, it would seem. It came through beautifully, so it's all good. So head over to the website, find out more about the new collection. I have thoroughly enjoyed playing through the music. I think it is a great mix. I think most students and most teachers will find music that will resonate with their students, and that's, as I said before, so important.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's interview and listening to some great music along the way. I do encourage you to visit abrsm.org to check out many of those resources that Sam mentioned. Lots of them are free for teachers, so go and have a listen to the music on Spotify and check out some of the resources on their website. Well, that's it from me today. Thank you so much for joining us, and I do hope you enjoyed exploring today's episode with me. Next week on the podcast, we are featuring the top music sheets composer for November 2024, the fantastic Matt Walker. I'm Tim Topham, and you've been listening to the Topcast. I'll speak to you again this time next week. How do you keep up to date with all the latest trends and research into music education? How do you connect with other teachers around the world and make sure your teaching stays fresh and relevant for students of all ages and stages, both now and into the future? I created our Top Music Pro membership to be the one-stop shop for music teaching resources, training, support and community, and I'd love for you to come and join us inside. With over 40 comprehensive training courses, hundreds of teaching demonstrations and lesson plans, free monthly sheet music, discounts, and all the business and pedagogy support you could ever need, Top Music Pro is the community you've been looking for. If you're ready to level up your learning from the podcast and join thousands of other teachers in our global network, head over to topmusicpro.com today. If you enjoy this show and want to hear more of our work, be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening today. For links and resources mentioned in this episode, visit us at topmusic.co/podcast or check out the show notes. I'm Tim Topham. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy your week ahead, and I'll catch you next time.